It's funny. It took months for us to get Publius's mic to work, and now that we're off the microphone distorters, now it's impossible to hear him again. So, funny how that works.
All right. Got all three Publius. Yeah. Okay. Well, everyone, we're doing another AMA here. It's been plenty of new stuff to talk about. I'm sure you've all read some of the new documents that have been dropped. You can queue up your questions in the classroom chat. You can also raise your hands, and I'll bring people up here. Is there anything else that's top of mind, Publius, that you want to maybe announce before we kick it off for questions?
Would just say it's kind of incredible to watch everyone who prior to the attack was working on Beanstalk in some capacity, who now has self-selected themselves to just keep working on it, even though now there's no value there at the moment and no expectation to pay from Beanstalk Farms. All these people who are just not just working, but just chefing and making some cool shit. And all the content that went out today from Beanstalk Farms is so cool to see, and very inspired by the Beanstalk community, and are grateful for the opportunity I think we all have in front of us to collectively work to get Beanstalk back up and running. So this has been a crazy roller coaster of a week, but at a high level, feeling just very grateful for our community and inspired.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't feel that different from last week at this time. I feel like we're just, like you said, wake up. It's wake up, code. I think the Publius said, wake up, code, go to sleep, and just wake up, work on Beanstalk Farms, Soul TV, go to sleep. So, and as far as everyone pulling together, something I tweeted today was that someone said, it's crazy, I'm feeling more bullish, about Beanstalk now than I did before, before the exploit. And I said, replied, I said, it's not really that crazy. It's kind of like believing more in your community after there's a big fire and everyone pulls together to work on fixing the buildings and rebuilding after a fire. It makes sense that you'd feel stronger about your community after that. You might be temporarily weaker, but long term, you're stronger for it. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'll quit blabbing. So here we go. Harry Smith. Busting my chops. Will the protocol launch with generalized convert/minting that was in progress pre-exploit?
Oh, Harry Smith, you don't miss a beat, and we love you for it. The short answer is that for simplicity's sake, we think it probably makes sense to launch with a single liquidity pool, and therefore there wouldn't be any need for generalized convert or minting at launch. However, all of that code, or the vast majority of that code, maybe not all of it, but a lot of that code has already been written and was getting prepared for audit anyways. And so the hope would be that if it's not in Beanstalk when it goes live again, because that will most likely be very similar to what was previously live, but without convert, if there's only one liquidity pool, the hope would be that, assuming things are moving smoothly, there's no reason why Beanstalk couldn't quickly move to other liquidity pools and have generalized convert and minting across some of those pools.
I'm going back up a little bit from Jams. We have thoughts on that Luna tweet and potentially $20 million of, quote, free LP. I don't know if you saw this tweet, but it is in the classroom chat, up about 10 comments.
No comment. Nothing. No comment. Real thoughts on something like this.
Right. Okay, from Beandolph.
Other than we think UST is very cool and, think this is something that would be very interesting to consider. There's no reason not to do the raise and launch the initial pool as a Bean UST pool, for example. Like, we have no problem with that. So that's something that should certainly be considered if we think that there's one set of holders that are going to be, token holders that are going to be more inclined to do something like this. There's no reason why not to maybe open up Beanstalk to a variety of different currencies to sow in, and then, launch with one liquidity pool, but maybe at least make it such that Beanstalk could attract other capital.
Alrighty. Beandolph, what are the thoughts around what the early bid bonus would be? The estimated multipliers that make sense, etc.
Well, it's a great question. Now, I don't know if I have a good answer. In theory, something like 3% per day. So if you bid on the first day, you get like a 21% bonus. That's interesting. And then if you bid on the second day, you get an 18% bonus, and so on and so forth. Now, the first question is, should the bonus be as a multiplier or as an addition? The thought is not to make it a multiplier, but just to make it as a plus. Although there is a thought that maybe you should be more aggressive and make it as a times. So if there's a 21% multiplier, it would be whatever pods you would have otherwise gotten. It's times 1.21. Now, you could be super aggressive and do something like if you bid in the first hour of the bidding process, again, there'll be like 168 hours over the course of the week. The concept is maybe you could do something like you get a huge bonus, like 168%, to just encourage people to ape in. But at some point then, you risk over front loading it. So there's some elegant middle ground there. Not sure what it is, but I'm sure the community there's a lot of discussions that we've been a part of and that people seem to be having as to what that slope that makes sense is and how discrete to make it. Don't think that it's too substantive in the grand scheme of things, but it's important to get right.
Okay, Austin posted a good question from General today. How will we measure the dollar value? Before, we were taking the USDC ETH Uniswap Oracle and comparing it with the ration with the Bean ETH pool. Now this will be. Now, how will this be achieved if there's no Bean ETH pool to begin with?
So the short answer is that because all of the work for generalized minting was completed, such that Beanstalk could mint based on the excess beans or shortage of beans in the Bean 3 curve pool over the previous season, that's basically how it would function. So, Publius, do you want to comment on the technical aspects of that in any more detail at the moment?
Not quite sure what there is to comment on in regards to that. We kind of, have the generalized minting math sought out for a generic curve meta pool. If we did end up launching with a curve plain pool, the math wouldn't be too different. There's going to be a little bit of friction there regarding, certain curve pools aren't launched with time-weighted average liquidity or time-weighted average price. If Beanstalk Farms gets to the point where, we're deploying a new curve pool, there's a little bit of friction around there we need to solve, but, shouldn't be too much more than that.
And I didn't hear this earlier, but what is the anticipated timeline to add the ETH Bean Uniswap pool?
No timeline. The short answer is after Beanstalk is back up and running, that'll be for the DAO to kind of evaluate how quickly to move on stuff, and don't really have any sense.
Okay, next question. Will there be any BeaNFTs?
The short answer is, I think it would be a real shame if there were not BeaNFTs for the barn raiser. So the cool thing about the community is that we're at the point where I haven't had anything to do with that, but I'm going to bet the over that there will be some BeaNFTs for the barn raiser. Don't know exactly. I actually have no information about them other than I think people are working on them. But that's a great idea, and one we hope happens.
I think there's probably not going to be any BeaNFTs. That's what I would say. Okay. From the Black Knight. Regarding the barn raise, there's no mention of a soft cap to move forward. There have been mentions a few times stating that Bean can reboot with minimal funds. My concern is that if the barn raise doesn't hit a soft cap, we're all faced with a high % haircut. Would it not be practical to at least know what a soft cap would look like?
It's a great question. And maybe there should be a soft cap. I think $10 million would be like a very reasonable number for that, to throw something out. It's hard to get a sense, right? The current plan is such that Beanstalk could really relaunch at any scale. Now, if there really is only 1% of the funds raised, less than $1 million, maybe it doesn't make sense for everyone to keep working on this. Maybe that's a reasonable position to take. From our perspective, that's something that probably needs to be sourced from the DAO and from people that are working on Beanstalk. What might be the threshold below which they're uninclined to work on Beanstalk, but from our perspective, there's no real minimum.
I have the Black Knight here, so I'm going to bring him up in case he wants to continue that discussion.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been following, all the proposals, etc., right? And, a typical token event of this nature kind of thing, you'd always want to kind of make sure that you retain X amount of funding, right? Because obviously you've got, in a typical project, you want to make sure you deliver X, Y, and Z, right? If you only reach a particular soft cap, then only X and Y can kind of go forward as well. So my fear is that
it's a great point, and I actually think this is one of the key differences between Beanstalk and capital raises. There's no work to be done. The funds will be raised and then Beanstalk is restarted. So there's no work that anyone's doing that is contingent on raising enough capital. It's just the capital will be raised and Beanstalk will be restarted, right? So I think this is actually a key difference where Beanstalk is fundamentally structurally different from a project where there's work that needs to be done, right? There's something that needs to be implemented. Beanstalk already exists. So once the fundraise is complete, it'll be merely a question of turning it on with the new parameters, effectively without governance.
Yeah, and that's a very good point as well. Yeah, so I respect that. I think the key part is that while I've got a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of community. The community is obviously very excited. There's lots to talk about. A lot of high, big investments, right? Which is really great, right? But talk is talk, right? Action is a different thing, right? My theory is that we're going to have one shot at this kind of barn sale, right? And it's kind of that's the kind of make or break of where we kind of wipe or kind of break even with people's haircuts as such. So if there isn't a soft cap as such, then it's kind of going, well, sorry guys, we give it a shot, but you've lost 80% in a haircut, right? But over time we make that back. But if there was some confidence that unless we do have a soft cap in place, that you're only going to be faced with, X amount of loss straight off the bat, at least that way we said, well, we try to do the barn raise. Maybe there's lessons learned there, but if we don't hit that soft cap, we can do a plan B to make sure that we do have more confidence of hitting at least an X soft cap.
I would make the point there's really one shot here, and if everyone decides to set a minimum and it's not reached, the thought would be, well, I guess at that point we're all going home because there's no demand for Beanstalk and beans. So that's, from my perspective, if you set a minimum, it's there's almost a nice element of that, of giving everyone a target, and it's like, if Beanstalk can't get to this threshold, then maybe.
Well, the argument.
Go ahead.
The argument, I agree, right, to some extent, right, but I do feel that there's probably elements that can be incentivized a little bit more to kind of really maximize the input here, right? So while there is only one shot, there's no reason why there can't be kind of some high level of confidence that we are definitely going to hit that soft cap as such. So that's all I'm going to say there. I don't want to I understand that the model's there, it's ready to kind of get kickstarted, fantastic, but it's just more to do with, where is the incentivization to kind of throw money back at this? Because at the moment, as an investor, I put in a lot of money, and at the moment, I'm still on the fence in regards to, if I was to scrape up more funds, is it really worth my while in regards to going back in? I'm not feeling that sweetener there to kind of, for me to jump back in, right? So that's bad, because I love Bean. I'm heavily
So let me ask you, the Black Knight, what do you have in mind as something that to you in particular would make you more likely to participate?
Well, I've communicated my views in regards to where we can kind of incentivize.
But this is an open forum. Everyone's listening. So let's discuss.
Okay. All right. Well, basically, I felt that there should be a dual pronged kind of approach there. There's liquid generation events. We're trying to recap on the liquidity, right? So at the moment we're going to be doing pod line only, which will result in the liquidity. But if there was more of a dual pronged approach where you had a liquid generation event where people donated their stable and that resulted in a multiplier, then you'd kind of have a two-stage approach where you'd actually have that liquidity in place. Then you can do a barn raise with a pod line, but you'd already have the prerequisite in place to actually kind of kick the pod line into place straight away. So, I mean, I know that's all kind of all random, but it's just more to do with a heavier focus on this barn raise. I just feel that it's just very, but it's very simplistic to the point where there's less moving parts, which is good, but it's just, maybe I'm overthinking this, but also as well with the pods, it's kind of it's going to be sorry, I'm just trying to read up on it's going to be a fundraise, right? So I suppose, I don't know, I just don't see the tiered structure in regards to, it's clear in regards to, if I was to invest $1 million, what does that look like from an investment perspective on it? There's still some gaps there, which I feel that probably just need to be ironed out over the next kind of following week.
Well, like what? Give me an example.
Well, okay, there's two investors, right? They each got $1 million, right? What's the difference between person A and person B investing their $1 million?
Well, it depends what are the circumstances, right? So there's going to be, there's a weather. There's two main factors. One is the day at which you bid. There's in theory going to be some bonus when you bid. If you bid on the first day and your bid wins, you'll get like a 21% bonus if it's 3% per day, for example. So if you bid 100% weather and then you bid on the first day and it clears, you'll get 121% weather, for example. Now, the other thing so there's two real things you can do. You can bid the weather and you can bid in advance such that you get some sort of bonus. Those are the two places where, if A and B put in $1 million, there may be a difference in the return that they get. And then obviously because the pod line is first in, first out, the place in line is going to be different depending on who sows first.
Okay. All right. I'm going to step down anyway, and I don't want to dominate this situation. I just wanted to kind of air some of my thoughts due to my circumstances. But that's all right. I'm going to step down. I don't want to rustle people's feathers. Obviously, everyone else has got confidence in regards to the barn sale. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of just share some thoughts. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would say is that simple is really better, And so I understand your point about maybe there being benefits to additional complexity at the micro level. But at a macro level, in practice, it's very hard to imagine that given the short notice and the amount of capital that Beanstalk needs to raise and the people that need to be educated about how Beanstalk works, it makes sense to add additional layers of complexity for marginal benefits. So, in my opinion, this is a very simple solution. I think that economically, all of the participants should be very well aligned. And my guess is over the length of this call, we may get into some of the minutia there, but that's the general structure, or the idea behind the structure, maybe.
Okay, thanks for your time. And totally confident about moving forward. So let's see what unfolds. Thank you.
Thanks, Black Knight. Also, there's going to be, as you continue thinking about this and as we continue putting out more, you've been a friendly face around, so I'm sure that you can hop on in a day or two and ask another question. I just invited Rose up on the stage. And in the meantime, I will check the chat. Okay, we have from Tricky Hodl. Any thoughts to pivoting to a single curve pool and fast-tracking acquisition of protocol-owned CVX and or VCRV above and beyond the minimum required to get a gauge, and use that to boost the APY high from the outset? Highest APY on curve convex is an easy way to get attention and then attract liquidity.
So, given how difficult it was to get a curve gauge the first time, don't think that's going to be possible at launch. But we do have a nice relationship with the curve people now, so hopefully that won't be too difficult after launch, but don't think that's feasible at the get-go.
Can you guys hear me?
Would also maybe just add to that, think it's better to start with Beanstalk native liquidity as opposed to bribed liquidity or externally incentivized liquidity.
Yeah, Rose, we can hear you.
Okay. I posted the question, but I will say it out over here as well. My question is, say we raise 50%, and is there a scenario with that 50% raise for the currently invested folks not to be able to get minimum 50% back, granted they wait the full vesting period?
When you say the full amount,
well, the 50%.
Well, just to be clear, I know, but just allow me to just be as clear as possible. The idea is assuming that you withdraw and sell your beans for $1, if that's the case, right? So you could wait until the full vesting period happens, and then if the price was below $1, then you'd, technically, I don't know if you're getting the full amount. But the idea is, in the spirit of the question that you were asking, I think the answer is no. If you wait the full vesting period, which is currently the thought is until the new pod line is fully paid back, instead of the 100 days, instead of something arbitrary. I actually don't know who to attribute the idea to, but somebody suggested it, and it's a very elegant solution where the vesting haircut or the vesting cut will be determined by the percentage of the new pod line that's been paid off. And therefore, if you wait until all of the lenders that come in to bail out the system are paid back, then there's no additional haircut, which we think is very elegant.
Mm-hmm. But the haircut will be determined by the actual end of the fundraise. So if we only raise 50%, that is pretty much a predetermined haircut.
That's a haircut that would happen, but then there's no additional haircut if you wait until after the new pod line is paid back. So there is a second haircut if you don't wait.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I understand both of those. What about the dependency on Bean gaining its peg back? Wouldn't there be a dependency as well on top of these two elements?
Well, again, this kind of goes to the presumption is that all of the new pod line has been paid back or harvested, which de facto means that beans are at peg, right? So that's like almost implicit in the question.
Okay. I'm so new to it, so thank you for being patient with me.
No problem whatsoever. And I don't mean to condescend in any way.
No, you didn't at all, actually. So what are the thoughts so far from I know that initially getting peg was a bit challenging and there was some changes to the economics or the code, which made it a lot more feasible for Bean to gain its peg. Granted that Beanstalk hasn't lost its popularity to the audience because of the robbery it just went through pretty much, right? And it stays intact. What would be an estimate for Bean to gain its peg back roughly?
So this is the main benefit of the haircut, if that makes sense. So from my perspective, I've been trying to figure out the best way to explain it. There's really three stages to what's going on, three parts. One is the barn raise itself. Then there's the haircut based on how successful the barn raise is. And then there's the vesting period, right? And so the benefit of the haircut, which there's no period, it'll just happen at the time Beanstalk is restarted effectively based on how successful the fundraise is. The idea is that haircut is what will create the sustainability in peg maintenance. Because if only 50% of the funds are raised, the entire system is being scaled down by 50%. And therefore, there's no reason to expect the circumstances to have substantively changed such that there's going to be a large mismatch of excess supply. Now, additionally, if we talk about the vesting, this is actually something that will have a unique effect on Beanstalk that is new. Because to date, there's been, other than the withdrawal freeze, which again has never been more than a day and is now, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. The idea is because of the withdrawal freeze, that's the only friction around withdrawing. Now, because of this vesting, the sell pressure from people withdrawing from the silo and selling is going to be dramatically reduced. So in many respects, would expect there to be limited supply pressure relative to demand, which is almost what you want given the fact that the system is being reset and scaled down. You would want it to be, in a position that's sustainable and strong as opposed to then immediately depeg. Now, that's not to say that there won't be some beans that were liquid or circulating that are then sold, but the concept is that, in the grand scheme of things, apples to apples, there's likely to be less sell pressure than there was before. Now, it is worth noting, despite the vesting, under this idea, 2/3 of the new bean seigniorage will go towards pod harvest now. So at the margin, each season, there would be slightly more beans that could be immediately sold on the market, but don't think that that will have, the most significant effect in the grand scheme of things.
So now when people, let's say somebody decides to, it's just like, I want out of it on day one, that when this gets turned on, right? Will they get proper notification on, regardless of what day of the vesting without being fully vested, of that how much they're leaving on the table?
So the short answer is that the UX team is probably more positioned to speak on. But the short answer is, in the same way that for a long time the language on the UX has been pretty good around withdrawals, stating you will burn this stock, you will burn these seeds, your assets will be frozen, yada yada. You'd expect there to be a similar level of clarity for users who are withdrawing, that they would be forfeiting, their claims to the BDV that they otherwise could claim more of if they waited or something like that.
Would there be essentially a calculator bit with it as well, or just a pure simple warning?
Again, very hard to say because I haven't spoken to the people that are working on the UX for this at all.
Any way to circle back and report back this onto the Discord somehow?
Long story short, I'm trying to look right now if any of not to put you on the spot, but Jellybean, any chance you can hop up here and talk a little bit about the UX process, or no pressure if not. But if you'd like to come up here, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get you up here to comment. Jellybean is head of the product design team at Beanstalk Farms.
Jellybean is just asked to speak, but then for some reason it says invite sent already. Let's see. Jelly, I'm going to dismiss you and then raise your hand again, okay? Raise your hand again now. Jelly. Oh, hold on. She DM'd me. Oh, she says, wait, I can't talk now. Sorry. But Rose, if you're going to, maybe Jelly, if you can talk in a second, or in maybe 20 minutes or something, she can hop back up.
Maybe we'll get Jelly up here later to address your question, Rose, or otherwise I'm sure there will be some response posted in the Discord or something like that.
That sounds completely fine. That sounds perfect.
What I would say, Rose,
as you can tell, we're all figuring this out in real time together here, Rose.
Yes, totally get it. No worries.
Usually our goal with UI is clarity, and before something happens, like I'm thinking, when you were converting beans to LP, it would say, here's what the beans are going to do, and here's how many more seeds you're going to get, and if it's going to burn stock, it would say how many stock it was going to burn. So I think that we would take this very seriously and obviously say, hey, if you're selling $100 of beans here and the haircut is 25%, I think that it would say, you will receive 75 beans after the haircut. I think that. That seems like the typical path for us. So I wouldn't. Publius, do you have anything to say to that?
I already said
it. Okay. But we can also. I'm sure that we can get someone from the team up the next AMA, or if Jelly can hop on a little bit later.
Yeah, I had another question and I've totally lost it, and I'll probably raise my hand again. Somebody else.
All right. No problem. You can always raise your hand again. Okay, so next, Publius, I got one for you. What price is Bean going to be when it relaunches?
So I don't actually know. Probably at whatever price it was at before the attack. Probably that. Maybe $1 though, but probably that.
Believe it was something like $1.03.
Yeah, something like that. But it's also very possible that it might just launch at exactly $1, if that makes sense. So those would be the two options at the moment.
Okay, I just brought Minecraft Grifter. I believe you had a question for me, Minecraft.
Yeah, I asked in the chat, what are the current plans to rectify the silo engagement? Because it seems like if the community had just had more of the market cap wrapped up in the silo, what happened wouldn't have been able to happen. Obviously, like it wouldn't have been available to public markets. So is there a plan to rectify that, or anything on the table there?
So I think that might be a little bit of a misconception. engagement in the silo is not the issue, in the sense that the only way to acquire stock is to deposit assets in the silo. So there was, and stock isn't even liquid, so it wasn't a question of like many of the people that are in the silo sold their stock and don't care, and then it was bought on the open market. This was the result of a flash loan attack that allowed someone to deposit like $1 billion of assets in the silo at once to acquire a 2/3 majority. That had nothing to do with the engagement in the silo.
But you see, he acquired the assets that can be deposited into the silo. If a greater share of those assets were already in the silo, if they were already in the hands of stockholders,
it's like that's like Ethereum, that's like 3Curve and USDC and LUSD. That's like, you know, billions of other assets.
Yeah, that's kind of like the problem is
how I fundamentally disagree here. That's totally
like
unfair.
Weakness in the system. I mean,
I don't know how you can say that. Beanstalk was starting to dramatically attract a lot of liquidity in the form of Ethereum and 3Curve and LUSD, and that was a clear sign of success. The idea that you're going to look at the state and say, well, it's not big enough, and that's an indication that it wasn't doing well, I think that's a totally wrong take.
Well, I'm not saying that it wasn't big enough. The trouble is that it just made the governance especially susceptible to outside decisions to put a lot of money in, right? Which isn't exactly the most secure position to be in. I would have said, maybe I should have said, not in regards to necessarily the whitelisted assets, but would you be willing to change any of the whitelisted assets going forward to acquire stock? Would you be willing to move into a different direction there? Or is there like another plan for maybe changing the amount of stock that's paid out? So maybe to reward older deposits with more stock. So to ensure that new deposits can't have something that takes over in less than a minute or something like that. Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
So respectfully, I think a lot of the things that you're talking about are already a part of the model. The only question I feel like I can actually answer is whether or not, you know, the whitelisted assets should be changed. And the thought is, at launch, there will likely only be Beans and a single LP token whitelisted, or at restart. What that LP token is unclear. And what liquidity pools or LP tokens are whitelisted going forward is, as always, an open question for the DAO. So no real answer there, but that would be the only part of your question I can really feel like I can actually address, other than to say, you know, do substantively disagree on your assertion about the size of the market, and would note that people do accrue more stock over time the longer they're deposited in the silo. However, in theory, there's no amount of additional stock that they could have accrued that would have prevented this attack from being possible if you assume that the amount of assets that could be flash loaned were greater than the size of Beanstalk, effectively. So, you know, in theory, you're correct that if Beanstalk were larger, you know, significantly larger than all of the assets that were available on the Ethereum network for such an attack, that would therefore make it resistant to such an attack. But, you know, that's like a tautology. So, but in that case, I guess you would be correct.
Yeah, in regards to flash loaning, I mean, like a common thing we'll see in contracts with startups is what we'll do is we'll take something like an agreement to have half of the shares in the company allotted to a given entity, and then what we'll do is we'll make them wait like 365 days or 3 years or whatever until they get like 80%, like balloons basically. So they pay out like 20% for the first X and then 80% the next X. With flash loans, something like that could potentially protect against it, whereby stock is initially given to older investors, legacy investors, when money goes into or assets go into the governance system of any protocol. But otherwise, yeah, you're correct in that there's no way to protect against the flash loan thing. But that's just like that's like DAOs. If, like infinite money can buy infinite votes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Beanology.
Howdy, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
One more time, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay,
Beanology.
thanks.
Beanology.
Thank you. I'm going to reprise a comment I left in the Discord a couple nights ago, kind of late at night, so a good number of people didn't see it, but a lot of people did see it, and it was highly reacted to, and it was about security. So first, let me just acknowledge that I haven't heard or read everything in the Discord or all of these AMAs. I have listened to a bunch of most of them, so I may have missed some of the conversations about it. That said, it's still, even with my sort of somewhat limited sample size, seems like a highly disproportionate amount of the discourse in the aftermath of this has been about how are we going to get it up and running again? And, you know, to be a bit glib about it, how am I going to get my money back? How are we going to get people's money back? How are we going to spin the money machine up again? And a disproportionately small amount about how are we going to avoid getting all the money taken away again? And I think that mentality, I want to be fair about it. I know you guys have been talking about it and thinking about it and acknowledging it in your blog posts and stuff, but that mentality was what got us in this in the first place, was disproportionately about spinning it up and getting it going and making it successful, and not enough about how to prevent it from getting attacked. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, in my comment, I said, I think, you know, every other word in every sentence you guys say for the next couple months should be security, because that's the number one thing. The number one thing is not how we get it up and running again and make it successful. Because even if you do that and security is number two, then we're all fucked again. So I just want to put in the word that, like, from the sidelines, I'm not hearing as much about security as I would like to. And it was like the number three thing in the plan for moving forward, behind several other, sections about how we're getting it up and running again, and the vesting and the percentages and the new plan. But it should be number one on the list. And like a lot of the detail that you guys put out, I think should be addressing that. And so from where I sit, again, limited, doesn't seem like it's number one right now.
Well, I really appreciate those comments, Beanology, and I would say a couple things. The first is, it's a very fair point that maybe the post should have led with security, and I'm sure the people that wrote it hear this, and it's like, this is all, no one's perfect. So with that said, one of the main reasons why at least I haven't been talking that much about security is because 99% of the questions are not about it. So if anything, I should just say thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. But in general, I think that's more a question of, that's because of the questions that are being fielded, and less a function of, what's important, if that makes sense. And in fact, one of the nice things about this proposal for how to move forward is that Beanstalk can move forward at really any scale. But as you say, then the most important question is, assuming you're moving forward, how can Beanstalk be robust and secure enough such that it is not exposed to any additional attacks like this, right? Because that would be crippling. And in short, there's a lot of different things that are being done on the security front. First, governance the governance facet, which was the vector where the attack vector ultimately lied, has been removed. And from a theoretical perspective, I would argue that the vast majority of potential attack vectors to Beanstalk prior to the attack lied in the governance facet, and the fact that through BIPs you could make arbitrary changes to Beanstalk. And so the fact that at the moment that has been removed is, that cannot be understated as to how important that is. It's also, although obviously it wasn't perfect, it is important to note that Beanstalk has been audited, and the entire contract has been audited, and the concept that there are other glaring holes in other parts of the code such that all of the assets could be drained other than via governance, that that seems less likely given the structure of Beanstalk. And again, it was audited to confirm things like that, but obviously, you got to take the audit with a grain of salt. With regards to future audits, Trail of Bits still is scheduled to start in the beginning of June. And one thing that is an open question that the DAO ultimately needs to decide on is whether it makes sense to restart Beanstalk shortly after the completion of the barn raiser, or whether it makes sense to wait until after the Trail of Bits audit is complete to restart Beanstalk, independent of how the fundraiser goes. And that's something that I think should be another snapshot that the DAO should vote on, because it's very hard to say what should be done there, right? So in the grand scheme of things, that's a question of risk tolerance and time preference that everyone needs to vote on together. But it's a very fair point. We've also been trying very hard collectively, and everyone who we talk to, we're trying to see if anyone has access to computer security experts with particularly expertise in Solidity and Ethereum development and smart contract development. Easier said than done. We're also trying to get in touch with other world-class auditing firms, which is, it is what it is. Basically, it's very hard to get in touch with them, but we're having more success than we did previously. So there's a ton of different things that I think collectively everyone that's working on Beanstalk is doing to make sure that security is a paramount focus. But agree that the fact that it wasn't the leader in the marketing content is that might not be ideal. And appreciate comments like that tremendously.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that as well. I'll just follow up and say, if it were me, it would be, I understand it's not easy to just pull a, crypto security expert out of thin air, but I would try to do that. I would try to find somebody to put on the team whose only job is to be the adversary.
Yeah, it is one of those things, like the people that are there's just so few people there. So this is a call. If you or anyone knows that person, we are actively looking for them collectively. We're all looking for them. So if they exist, think they could come to Beanstalk Farms and drive a pretty tough bargain for what it makes sense to be brought on as a full-time contributor. This is important, tremendously important, but it's really hard to find the right person, frankly.
Yeah, I hear that, and I sympathize, but it's also like, if you don't have that person or the equivalent, then there's a big hole. And it's like we had the seven departments before in the last quarterly call, right? And security wasn't one of them. Security should be one of them this time. And whether it's you find that person and they're a full-time employee, or you find a trusted, auditing firm or consultancy or whatever it is, because it didn't, from comments you had made in the first call a couple of days ago, didn't seem like Omniscia was going to continue to be a trusted ally. But it's like,
they're not, in my opinion. They're not.
Right.
No.
And so if we're like surfing this wave without a trusted security ally on the wave right next to us, then it just seems like there's no point in really doing it, because it's just going to get toasted again. So it's like, it doesn't seem like I hope we can do that. I hope we can find somebody. Does anybody know anybody? It seems like if you can't do it, you probably shouldn't continue. If you can't find somebody that you feel like can be like a
I would ask
pillar
you,
of security?
do you think Trail of Bits is that? Like, once Trail of Bits audits Beanstalk, will you feel comfortable? Or is this the type of thing where at this point, there's no way to make you comfortable because of what's happened? And I think some people will fall into that boat.
I don't think it's about who does it. I think it's about having a continuous presence doing it.
I would totally disagree. What the Omniscia audit taught us is it's all about who does it.
Well, okay, let's break that down a tiny bit. If you buy that the Omniscia audit was largely, correct up to the point that they finished, and then we kept moving and we couldn't get in contact with them and they were slow and not responsive to further changes, then it's the further changes part that we, got ahead of our skis on, and that's the dangerous thing.
I disagree there. I don't think that's a factual representation of the facts in practice. The thing that was ultimately attacked has been in the code from the beginning and was audited by Omniscia. The emergency commit function has always been there. The ability to acquire 2/3 of the stock and commit a BIP has always been there. So the concept that the work that Omniscia didn't audit is the reason why this happened, I think is incorrect.
Okay. Well, I can't be a final arbiter of that. When they said that it was something to do with the LP pools from
of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to say that. So respectfully, didn't feel that was an honest characterization of events. And we're not in the business of pointing fingers. Certainly, like this is it's not a question of this is Omniscia's fault or it's not their fault or something like that, but just in terms of the article they put out and their characterization of what the vulnerability that was exploited was, I felt their article was entirely disingenuous.
Okay, let me just finish with one last point, because I'm not trying to disagree and I'm not really trying to be an adversary. I want everybody to win, but I still do think that there's value in having a presence there at more or less 100%, constantly,
100%.
More or less
apples
constantly.
To apples, 100% better, 100% better. And if that can be arranged for Beanstalk, or whenever that can be arranged for Beanstalk, I think that should become a permanent fixture of the community. But I don't think that's gonna appear today or tomorrow per se, unless someone knows the person. I don't know the person, so that's the thought, basically. And I think it's just about being honest with one another about, unless that person is presented or brought forward shortly, the idea of, we're not going to, as you said, we can't move forward without it. That's an attitude by which then I don't think we're moving forward, basically, because as far as I'm aware, that person doesn't exist at the moment, frankly. And I think it's important to be honest about that.
Yeah, I just think you should aim towards a moment as soon as possible where you do have that, because otherwise you're sort of saying
100%.
We're free riding without 100%. Somebody evaluating the security at every moment.
If Beanstalk gets recapitalized, I know everyone else at Beanstalk Farms is working very hard. I know everyone else in the community is working very hard to find that. And this is a great dialogue beanology so that everyone is on the same page. If you know someone who is a computer security or smart contract security expert, let's bring them in. So I think that's the point, and appreciate what you're saying tremendously.
Yes. And then in very last closing, if anybody knows somebody, or if you guys know somebody that is a very good headhunter or recruiter, that's what they do. They find people in all different walks of technology that are good, and they vet them for you. So it doesn't have to be a direct reference from the community. It can be like, do a snapshot where you pay somebody to go find that person. It's not a new problem. It's like, there are people out there that are really good at finding good people. So anyway, thanks for your time. I'll jump off and appreciate it.
Technology, before you hop off, do you have any experience with... lost him. I was just going to ask him about crypto headhunters, because the few, the tough space. All right, I'm going to head back to the classroom chat for... Oh, no, there was one more from Eightfold in general earlier. Okay, I've just read the proposal and I've listened to the Twitter space from last night. I heard Publius say that once we start, that we will start with one silo, a pure stablecoin one, and no ETH Bean one. Question, how will we measure the dollar value before we will... actually, I'm sorry, we already answered this question, didn't we, Publius?
Dumpling, you're sleeping at the wheel, man. Come on, we're only an hour into this, Dumpling.
Well, we're going for 3 hours.
Oh my goodness, setting us up. All right, let's do it.
Well, we'll go as long as there are questions. Okay. We got Bean Bankman Refried. It's one of the best names on the farm.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
How's it going? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, awesome. Hey, first of all, a comment there about the Omniscia thing. I mean, the way that I feel about that is we should be absolutely in the business of pointing fingers, but time and place, right? I think it's completely unfair the way that they've characterized it, given the the factual representation of what happened there. So anyway, just a comment there that I wanted to kind of get off my chest.
Yeah, it's fair, man. It's fair, and all I can say is it's a difficult situation, and on this end, it's we don't like to badmouth anybody, and but nonetheless, totally sympathize with what you're saying, 100%. And also, as Dumpling said, you do have one of the best names in the Discord, so it's nice to have you up here and participating.
Thank you. And I mean, it's, if not for anything else, it's for the larger benefit of DeFi, right? The community at large. So, so the question I had was, with the way that this pod line, the bond raise pod line has been set up, in theory, we have put a maximum weather there and the maximum number of pods that we're willing to issue, right? Which is your 75 million times whatever the max weather is. Assuming someone comes up with 75 million at the max weather, that's going to be the length of the pod line. What my idea on that, which may or may not make sense, is if we, let's say, through the raise half of it, right? How about we keep the pod line open beyond that? And once people see that Beanstalk is churning again, I think you're going in and out, Bean. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. No, I was saying, what if we keep the bond raise pod line open? Even if we just raise the 50%, we will all take the haircut. But at the same time, if we keep that line open, it might be more attractive to some people once they actually see the machine in motion again.
So two things. One, or a couple things. I think from an incentive perspective, it's a little bit ugly in the sense that this is a one-time soil issuance. You got to get people excited about it while it's a limited time. There hasn't been any soil available for over a month. This is for a short time there's soil. I think from a behavioral economics perspective, that's important. From a technical perspective, to have the fundraise continue to go and restart the system, I think is a nightmare. So it's much easier to raise the money and then hit play than it is to have some sort of hybrid system. And those would be the two main reasons I think it's better not to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking at it from a point of we raise what we raise. However, if there's a way that the system recovers fully again and starts
it will
printing,
recover fully again, but the way it will recover is through future growth in Seigniorage, not through continuing to plug the hole that exists, if that makes sense. I think it's much more advantageous for the protocol to say, okay, there's this one-time haircut, but going forward, there's everything is back to normal, basically, as opposed to continuing to try to fill this hole.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough.
Cut off the limb and live to fight another day,
Yep. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, BBR. We got Aaron coming up. Aaron, you are currently muted. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to bring Rose back. I think she remembered her question. Hey, Rose. You guys have to unmute if you haven't unmuted.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I just want to kind of like remind all of us that Beanstalk, like we all we could agree, was a successful protocol, and the structure of the stable coin in such a unique way doesn't exist anywhere else on the chain. And if we could if Beanstalk as a community and as founders could do that, I think that we need to stop saying we can't find a security expert and make it a mission to bring and call that in for the community and not be in a given up stance, because I think it's going to determine the further success of Beanstalk when it comes back online for its next phase after such a brutal theft that has happened of all the funds. I think that's going to be...
Can I hate to do this, Rose, and I say that with a little bit of a smirk on my face. Do you want to volunteer to be in charge of this recruitment process? This is the way it happens at Beanstalk. Everyone just has to raise their hand and get their hands dirty.
I don't know if I can be charged. I'd be happy to start a process if nobody else has, or join the team's mission for sure. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm sure Dumpling will reach out to you after this.
The number one semiconductor company in the world. So I've run a team of 100 engineers across the world for 20 years. So this isn't something that's completely off limits for me and potentially be successful at. I'll be happy to join the team and finding someone.
Fuck yeah. All right, Dumpling, you'll message Rose after you. Hell yeah. This is hey guys, there's some magic happening here. Thank you, Rose. Welcome to Beanstalk.
No problem. I'd be happy to help with this process. And my other question, if it's okay to take some more time and ask, since I'm still trying to understand and wrap my head around the recovering of the funds, how does, if at all, this haircut, regardless of whatever percentage of haircuts, it impacts the percentage share of the impacted investors? I would think that it wouldn't impact, even if everybody got the exact same.
Everyone gets cut pro rata, so everyone would still have exactly the same ownership of Beanstalk before and after, with the exception of the implied ownership at a given bean supply is going to change because of the issuance of the new pod line, if that makes sense. So if you were previously at 30 million in line and you said, okay, 60 million of issuance until my pods harvest, now that would be 90 million until my pods harvest. So there is some change in the bean supply at which you will have value. But in practice, like currently, once the haircut happens, your pro rata ownership of the system should not change.
But it would just take longer in the pod line.
If you're in the pod line, that's correct. And longer defined as more beans need to be minted before you harvest.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering. I think those were my two big subjects that I had forgotten earlier, and they came back to mind. Excited to help the team, hopefully make some progress on heading in the direction of finding some security solution for Beanstalk.
Well, thanks, Rose. I will, of course, I just DM'd you, of course, so I'll loop you into where we are currently with the search. I will say that, this isn't the sort of job that you just post on LinkedIn and get. So we are in that search right now is we're having people, 3 or 4 people actively reach out and create kind of the top of the funnel. And then we're, working our way through it. And we're having our, our senior developers be those people who then, are actually having those initial conversations to make sure the person is really good and is who they say they are. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. But I just DM'd you and would love.
Wonderful.
It sounds like I'd love it if you could be helpful, and anyone else who's in the audience right now. This is
really good at interviewing people. I can definitely offer that, especially around security issues. So, I'd love to see what has been tried already, so I don't go repeating redundant things, and unless they're really warranted.
Well, no, we'll be in touch. Just respond to my DM, and we'll get you going. This is amazing.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Aaron, did you ever get your mic working?
I still see on my end that it says he's server muted. I don't know how to unserver mute him, but I see that he is server muted.
So what happened there is at some point he was leaving his mic on during a meeting and there was wind or something. So let's see. I'll mute him and unmute him. And then Aaron, if you want to leave and then come back, then it should work. In the meantime, we have AJ.
Oh, Aaron's back.
Aaron's back. All right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I was wondering is there a possibility of allowing folks in the silo to stay beyond the point of 100% new podline payback in order to get an opportunity, even if it's over a long time, to grow their hair back fully, and thus, have that loyalty, create also stability and also confidence, since, the credit history is the backbone of Beanstalk.
Well, so are you asking about the pod holders taking a haircut or the silo members?
It would probably be for silo members. They keep the deposits there and don't create any additional sell pressure until the market cap would make it so that it doesn't affect Beanstalk or whatever that is determined to be.
Well, I think the only problem with something like that, Aaron, is it's really a question of what is a reasonable ask to make to lenders, right? That stockholders need to make. And in practice, if you're not willing to take a haircut at all, if you're the first guy to make a bid or to get in line, where I'm only putting in $1 million and I don't know if anyone's coming in behind me, if no one's going to take a haircut, well, shit, like that's a very tough position to put people in, where now they're going to bail out the whole system themselves, like a little bit of a tragedy of the commons problem there. So instead, by getting everyone to accept the haircut such that if no one follows that first guy, they're going to be perfectly okay. And in fact, they may even prefer it. That's a really good place to be, right? Where people want to come in and then don't want anyone to come in behind them. That's a system that's likely to attract a lot of additional capital. So, would just say that from an incentive perspective, agree no one wants to take a haircut, but think this is a reasonable solution to trying to make this as attractive as possible to people to come bail out Beanstalk.
Okay, I understand that. And those folks that bail out Beanstalk, once they're completely paid, and that's not an issue anymore. It may be months or years. Well, that's always
the case, right? Under the current plan with the vesting. So the haircut is separate from the vesting. The vesting already makes that guarantee that there won't be any sell pressure, or at least there won't be any sell pressure from silo members that are getting bailed out in excess of the proportion that the people that are performing the bailout have already been able to redeem. So that's already the case. So the problem is now you're really just saying apples to apples. Let's cut down on what we're willing to offer to the bailout. And I don't think that necessarily makes sense.
I think maybe I'm being misunderstood, or maybe not. I guess what I'm saying is, after all the new money has been paid, if someone, they can vest 100% of whatever the haircut is. If they decide not to sell and take their 100% of whatever the haircut was, but will commit in whatever way it makes sense to stay for an extended period of time and not withdraw their beans, maybe never. Is there any point in time, any length of time, any market cap that would make it so that people have the opportunity to become whole if they commit to long term, and even after the vesting period is over and they're able to take 100% of the haircut out, they just want to stay?
Again, I hear you, but I think in practice, it's like beggars can't be choosers.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, just wanted to put the idea out there and see. I'm not sure how would that affect the protocol after the fact in the future.
It's not about that. It's about in practice being able to attract as much capital now as possible, right? So you may say, oh, well, in the long run, I'll get all of my money back, but does that really matter if Beanstalk only restarts with 1% of the capital it had a couple weeks ago? I would make the argument it's much better to make an aggressive offer as a DAO and try to attract as much of that capital back as possible to get Beanstalk back up and running as soon as possible. If the haircut is 99%, well, regardless, that's pretty, even if you still at some point could get all your beans back, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to be way over diluted whenever that happens, right? So instead, the goal is to try to figure out how can Beanstalk attract enough demand such that everyone doesn't get way over diluted. And I think that's where at the margin there needs to be a compelling offer made. And I think it would be a mistake to try to over bargain on this particular aspect. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, just wanted to put it out there. Just something I've been thinking about. I've noticed in the chat other people mentioned something to that effect. Just one other question, and then I'll end it there. And I apologize, I haven't read the paper. I've been listening to all the chats, and I didn't actually read it. Maybe it's in there, but I believe that even after it restarts, whatever the haircut is, we'll have stock and we'll continue to get our proportion of beans minted. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that? I don't think I got that.
Even after the haircut, once Beanstalk restarts, silo members will continue to get beans minted when it goes over $1 and the peg is over $1. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify
and those
that.
beans will not be subject to any sort of vesting under the current proposal.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Okay, take care.
And can I just say, your BeaNFT matches your voice almost perfectly.
All right, cool. Thank you. I got to grow a mustache now.
Exactly. Good stuff.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, AJ. Dr. Beans. AJ's been patiently waiting, so we'll see if we can get him going.
Oh God, I have to exit quiet.
What's up, Dunks?
Hey, how's it going? So I was thinking to ask a question about like I've been watching Doquan on Twitter lately, and he seems like very supportive of all algo coins and things like that. And I know there's been some chats with, talking about different assets and which assets are we planning on raising with, so I'm just wondering, how do you like what are the options for, what are the options and what are the pros and cons of raising with, say, ETH versus, something like 4Pool or,
Well, the 4Pool's not live yet. If it were live, that might be something very interesting to raise with. UST is also very interesting to raise as being the starting pool. FXS is. I think, in general, if any of those communities were interested in some sort of upfront starting bonus for using that pool, that would be very interesting to everyone. At least I would think it would be. So it's a very good point, Dunks.
Yeah, I just feel like there's some form of there's having some kinds of alliances around who's giving support, right? Like Beanstalk is in some sense it's in a weak position, but in some other sense it's not about weak and strong position, but it's if people are positive sum thinkers, and I think people like Frax and even Do Kwon kind of signaling that they are positive sum people who do want to support the industry. Like if we can, obviously when some protocols are more likely to be supportive than others, and if we can kind of work in that direction, it might give us a really good starting point.
Very hard to disagree with you, Dunks. Very hard to disagree with you.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting though. I haven't even fully read through the barn raising document, but I really like the 10-day thing as well. Could you talk a little bit about the 3-day idea, and then there was a bit of pushback on that. Could you talk a little bit about what the 10-day thing like it?
Yeah, so now that you guys know we're you Chicago people, the 10-day is like a Chance the Rapper reference. The concept is, in short, it's very difficult for the market to price soil at the beginning. However, if you just run like the fundraiser, the 3-day auction, without any sort of bidding process, there's nothing to say that Beanstalk won't be able to raise the money, but it's likely to be suboptimal in terms of both the rate, the weather that Beanstalk is going to have to pay on average, and potentially also the money that it raises. So by allowing for there to be some sort of bidding process where bids are locked in, and particularly the terms of the bid are that the only way that your bid won't fill at a given weather is if by the time the auction hits that weather, all 76 million soil have been sown, then that's a very compelling way for the market to gauge demand. And in particular, it does seem like there's a little bit of a game of chicken where people are a little concerned about the first couple $1 million coming in, and feel like having this discovery period where people can indicate that they are, and not just indicate, but actually bid, where the bids are locked in actual demand. I think that will be very substantive towards alleviating a lot of people's concerns about the auction itself.
Awesome.
PJ, did you ever get your mic working? Hey. I hear ya.
Hey guys, might just jump in here if that's okay.
Hang on one second, Hugh.
So I think a few of us on the call were around when price per bean was down at sort of like 23 cents, and something that was incredibly powerful and is almost the superpower of Beanstalk Farms from my perspective is really the community meme of farming and of course the BeaNFTs. And I remember jumping on a call, I'm pretty sure it was with Dr. Beans at that point in time, and getting a sneak preview into the BeaNFTs before they were launched, and it was incredibly effective in sort of driving this like viral almost marketing campaign to quote meme the price back to peg. And so a question from my perspective would be, how are you guys thinking about kind of like a broader marketing campaign to drive awareness and obviously to drive interest from different investor segments to raise the barn?
The long and the short of it is, there's a lot of different things that can be done to raise awareness, but feel like, respectfully, there's a lot of publicity already around this thing, Hugh. Like, we spoke to the Wall Street Journal for an hour and 15 minutes yesterday. Believe there's a story coming out about Beanstalk this week in the Journal, or tomorrow in the Journal, and also potentially another one next week about the barn raise. So, like, there's going to be a lot of publicity around this thing is the point. Now, there is a whole marketing team on Beanstalk Farms, and Mod has raised his hand, so we're going to invite him up here to speak about that as well. But the concept is, I think that between all the coverage Beanstalk has gotten and is going to continue to get, it's likely that people are going to be highly aware of what's going on. Now, the NFTs, again, hint, hint, wink, wink, people are working on the NFTs. I don't know anything about it, but think that there will be some NFTs associated with the barn raise, but don't know whether they'll be ready to use as marketing material. I have no idea. So, Mod, what's up?
Yeah, hi guys. I can touch on a little bit, and as Publius said, the media is out there. So we've had top media report about Beanstalk and what has happened, and we're reaching out to them. They're reaching back actually for updates. Once we've released the path forward, many of them have come back for an update or the details of it. As Publius said, we had an interview with the Wall Street Journal yesterday. We have follow-ups with other ones coming up as well. So expect the barn raise to be mentioned or to be pushed out there. We will be having educational content as well about the barn raise, basically introducing it, explaining what the barn raise is, how does it work, how can participants participate, what does it mean for them. You'll hear a lot of Publius as well. He will be out there always taking questions, explaining what the barn raise is for others. So we're pushing all out when it comes to marketing, and the main focus for it is again the barn raise. What does it mean? What does it mean for Beanstalk, and what does it mean for participants as well for it? And any ideas, anything as well as such? Hugh, we have a marketing channel that's on the Discord, so open to any suggestions or any input as well.
Yeah, phenomenal. I wanted to shout out the communication since the exploit has been top notch. Like honestly, it's something you rarely see even in some of the best companies out there. So yeah, massive shout out. And I'm excited for what I would say is like a call to action to everyone on this call and everyone in the community to really like drive that kind of like grassroots awareness in addition to these conversations with the press as well. So I think it's probably like a combination of the two, and I think like we're in a really good position now given what we've done in the last couple of days to really
and worth saying that things are moving quite fast. The past 4 days things have been it's like you're catching up with them. We had a press release that was released 2 days ago. It went live yesterday, and basically it was explaining that there is a path forward where we're moving. Today was the day that we released the details of this plan, so expect it to be to be updated and pushed around as well as we approach the barn raise.
Phenomenal. Thanks, guys. I'll drop off now.
It's you, AJ. This is your last chance, AJ.
Hello?
Hey, all right. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. AJ has been sort of live tweeting these, which has been pretty awesome. So on Twitter, AJ, I'm just going to shout out your Twitter in case anyone. It's Andrew Picol. So it's just Andrew, and then Picol is his last name there. So yeah, thanks for doing that. And what's your question?
Oh my God, we lost AJ.
Oh my gosh, after all that. AJ, can you just type your question and I'll read it?
Oh, really?
But
I might ask my question then, if that's okay.
Oh, go ahead, Liam. Yeah.
So with the barn raise, I've been hearing some, I've heard some talk around it's going to be a Bean USDC pool. I just wanted to, and I apologize if this question's already been asked.
Definitely not. It would never be a US.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, good. All right. So that was some rumors that was going around that I'd heard. Like, what's the thinking around the pool being used as like the initial silo pool for?
It has to be a decentralized currency that a value of $1 can be derived off of it. So previously, Beanstalk started with Ethereum, which you can derive the value of $1 off of it because it trades against plenty of dollars on Ethereum mainnet. But 3 curve was something that Beanstalk was also going to start using to reference the price of Bean relative to $1 once generalized minting went live. And the short answer is, therefore, the pool could be 3 curve. As Publius was saying earlier, whether it's a meta pool against 3 curve or a plain pool against something like Frax or UST, that's all similar. So as long as it's decentralized, truly decentralized, and there's a way to reference $1 off of it, don't think there's too much else to it. And I guess liquidity would be the other question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like probably maybe the meta question to what I was grasping at was what is the current thinking around, the type of pool that's going to be used outside of decentralization, in the sense of, a 3 curve pool, or, dare I even ask, like, is 4 pool being considered in the sense of, adding leverage to, potentially garner support from the Terra and Frax community.
Everything is on the table, Liam. Everything is on the table as far as I'm concerned. It's like, may the highest bidder win, effectively.
Right. Okay. Okay. Understood. So there could be multiple pools, not just one.
In theory.
Great. Okay. I think that there's probably some things I need to get up to speed on here, but I think
technically it's a little easier to deploy with a single pool to start, but there's nothing to say that shortly thereafter there couldn't be other pools.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Super keen to learn more about this as things evolve, and thanks for answering my question and helping clarify that for me.
Thanks, Liam. Much appreciated.
Brought Jellybean up on stage. Jellybean, I know Rose had a question earlier about if someone was to withdraw their assets. Let's say that theoretically there's a 50% haircut. Theoretically, let's say.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Let's say
Dumpling, I don't know if you're speaking because I know you're not on mute, but I can't hear you. So, Publius, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but Dumpling is speaking.
Okay, sorry.
Then let's have Publius. You explain.
Jelly, will you just hop out and hop back in, maybe, just to see if then you can hear Dumpling?
Yeah. Okay.
Gives me time to get my thoughts together anyway.
I don't know what the thoughts are, whether they're needed. Everyone knows what the problem is. We've all been here listening. She was
listening too, I suppose.
Yeah, so whenever Jelly can come back, she can just start chatting, I guess. But in the meantime, Bean or Rose, why don't you rescue Dumpling and I from our endless banter between one another?
Hey, I'll go. Hopefully it's a quick one. Will the bond race pod line positions be tradable in the marketplace at Unpause?
At restart, hard to say. Again, the goal is to keep things as technically simple as possible. But in the grand scheme of things, no reason why that wouldn't be possible. Just don't know as to, when it will be possible.
Got it. I would having an option to make that liquid is definitely attractive. So, my sort of point of view on that is we should make that a priority.
I mean, Ereal made a great point somewhere that a pod in the new pod line or in the old pod line at the same place in line is the same. So the only complexity is now that in theory you have two pod lines that could be sold into the same order. So there is some complexity there, but in short, don't think it's too hard and agree it would be high value.
All right. I was thinking about that earlier today too, and we had a little discussion about it. And yeah, exactly the same value. It's interesting. You got for us?
Did we lose Jellybean forever?
Oh, let's see. I'll invite her. Okay, Jellybean. I'm inviting you back up, Jellybean. Okay, Jellybean.
Okay, I'm back, but I don't know if anything's fixed.
Go ahead and speak. Someone tell her to talk.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jellybean.
Okay. All right. I guess I can go. Hey guys, I apologize for earlier. I was listening, but I was in an environment where I could speak. And anyway, hi Rose. Thank you for all of your thoughtful questions earlier. So if I remember the question earlier correctly, was it around whether the UI will clearly show to users how much of a haircut they would take if they decide to withdraw before it's fully invested? Is that right? Or was
Correct. Yeah, that was the question. Question was whether it's just going to be like a simple message, like you're not, if you withdraw you're withdrawing without fully being vested, you are leaving money on the table, and perhaps a calculator in there, how much money somebody's leaving on the table at any given time to assess whether it's time to take the exit or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think that, as well as any other information that we would need to surface with the updates that we'd make, for sure, we would want to make that very clear. And I think your perspective on what would be helpful, what features would be helpful, like a calculator or something else, I think that would be really good feedback to write down. I think around the product design process as a whole, before the whole exploit happened, I think the product design team was already very actively engaged around rethinking the experience on the site holistically, because we are very aware that we absolutely need to improve the user experience in many ways. But I think as far as my priorities regarding redesign, but I think also for the others on the product team, improvements around information design, making sure people understand what they're doing, and more clarity is probably the highest priority as far as what we want to improve on. So, I mean, at least that's absolutely the goal. And of course, we need to do, usability testing to make sure that information that we display is actually understandable. But yeah, hopefully that helps. And happy to go into more detail later too.
That definitely helps. I'm picturing something like Tulip or Frankium, where before you get into a strategy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with those two, but they're pretty easy to go. Hop on Solana network and check them out. But before the user enters a strat or a strategy or a vault or whatever you want to call it, they have a little calculator with a UI that you can use a slider for, like, if you wanted to exit now versus in 30 days versus in 90 days, a rough ballpark of what a person would be leaving on the table versus, what they will be, how much additional they'll be taking with them. I know it's a really big ask, but if you are up for a challenge, you guys are already working on something like that, and if it's something that's doable, that would be really incredible. And that could then be ported over to after the barn raise is done, right, for the turning back on of the Beanstalk. When people are entering Beanstalk, then providing them a calculator for how the silo works and how the swale works and all of that, some sort of a visual calculator or an illustration of, what does it mean to stay in the silo for longer, and why is it better for you to enter silo sooner than later, right? And the calculator visual representation would really help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to for us to think through that more for sure. Some kind of calculator, glider, simulator, some kind of thing to help users understand what's happening with their money. I think that would be really helpful, especially for this space where things aren't as clear, like what's happening for sure.
Thank you. I mean, I think that was that's why you were brought on. I think that was a smaller question that is now morphed into something much bigger of a conversation. My simple question was, are people going to actually be able to give in a calculator and see how much money they will be leaving on the table, which will actually incentivize people to not leave early, which is actually overall better for everybody, whether from many perspectives is to people to wait to be fully vested, right? And oftentimes information is what's needed, and the numbers are what's needed for people to make the informed decision, and not just a simple warning that you're leaving some money on the table and not tell them how much. And then if they're left in 30 more days, how much will that be? So something along those lines is so not sure if there's enough time for all of that to take place, but I'm sure you can make magic happen.
I mean, we'll definitely try. But
the only thing I would comment on is one thing that we collectively have been struggling to figure out is the best way to present future expected bean mints, if that makes sense. And the only thing that you're asking about, Rose, which is unclear, is if you want 30 days in the future. Well, because the vesting schedule is under the current plan is a function of the amount of the new pod line that has been paid off. It's really a question of what the bean supply is at a given time. So instead, I think the way to make the calculator, instead of time, where then there's an estimate that needs to be made on the calculator's part, instead maybe a calculator at a given bean supply, what the forfeiture would be, if that makes sense. That may be more
That's
clean.
correct. That would make more sense for sure, since that's where we have pivoted now. Yes, 100% agree.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Rose, go ahead.
You can hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, I'll let you get back to Rose. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to ask you, Rose. Would you be interested in other people, or like other people? You can also answer this as well. So, Rose, if you'd be interested in talking more with us, the product design team, because I would love to hear more about what you're kind of envisioning. Maybe some kind of co-creation, session or something. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'll be happy to have a session, and we could do it on here on video. And I could show you a couple examples of a whole bunch of protocols that are doing it. And I mean, it's not in the way that I'm visualizing, in the way that, I don't know if you remember the Ohm forks that did that. Like, they had these calculators and the number of Ferraris and whatnot, which was ridiculous. I'm not referring to anything like that. Something that requires a calculator to pull some data from the calculator, and from the database, from the protocol, and being able to run simple calculations and give people a rough estimate of kind of like what we're looking at in the future instead of exiting now.
I'm sure this sounds great. So Rose and Jelly, go ahead and get connected. And if you guys need to connect, I'm already friends with you, Rose, and I know we're chatting offline too. So really appreciate that. I have been neglecting the classroom chat here, and people are, so let me get a couple questions from here. Okay, we have from AJ, what's going to happen to the pod marketplace? Is it getting completely reset and all listings removed? Do we have to cancel our contracts?
The short answer is unclear at the moment. I'm going to guess that you're going to have... Go ahead, Publius.
Yeah, so all of the existing listings and orders still exist in the contract itself. So we don't have to reset the pod marketplace. However, the decision should be made, as a DAO, whether we think it's better to kind of just reset the pod marketplace and start from scratch, or do we want to just resume the pod marketplace with business as was?
Okay, and AJ's second question is a little longer. He's actually really responding to Aaron's. I'm gonna leave that.
Sorry, Dumpling. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was wondering if I was forgotten.
No, sorry. I was just trying to get back to a couple of people over here, and then we'll take you. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, from Warthog, we have: does Publius recognize the importance of CVX?
So, Convex and that whole ecosystem is so cool and exciting, and it's kind of a shame that Beanstalk was just starting to foray into their ecosystem when this happened. So, in short, think it's very cool, think it's incredibly important in the current landscape of DeFi. In the short term, think it's important for Beanstalk to prioritize Beanstalk native incentive structures, given what's just happened. But in the grand scheme of things, think that Convex boosted curve rewards via Convex in the silo is going to be a game changer for DeFi. So yes, I recognize how important it is. And I would say we all do. Publius, we all do. We talk about it all the time.
Okay, John. Turn. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, all. I'm not really sure if this was asked. I read a little bit on the post, and I think I understand. But one of the questions I had was the what we've already had in the silo, assuming we're not depositing, will that continue accruing interest? I don't know if that was answered or if that was intentionally left off.
Yes. So in short, you have stock, and then you either have beans that are deposited under that stock, or you have LP tokens that are under that stock.
Right.
In short, there will be some haircut from 100% to 0% on all of that pro rata. So if it's 50%, right, you'll have half of the stock that you had, half of the beans, you had half of the LP tokens, you had half of the seeds, you have half. However, right, as soon as the system restarts, everything will be normal in the sense that when new beans are minted, your stock will yield bean Seigniorage. Instead of half of the Seigniorage going to stockholders, it'll be a third until the new pod line is paid off. The barn raised pod line is paid off. But right, in short, you will continue to earn Seigniorage.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That was just my one question. And I don't know if I missed it in the reading, but I definitely recommend adding that information there because I'm sure it'll help people in deciding whether they want to, take the haircut or, potentially realize that they're missing out on more money than they thought of.
Yes, that's a great point, and I'm sure. I know for a fact the people that wrote the post are in this chat, so I'm sure they'll reflect that.
Okay.
Great. This is awesome. Thank you very much for your comments, John. Appreciate very much when people tell us that they don't understand stuff or whatever. Like, that's great feedback. In fact, this is just a side note. My brother texted me today saying he didn't understand the post, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what that means. So, agree. We can always do a better job collectively as being clearer, but appreciate it tremendously. And we gotta get you a Bean PFP dog. Yeah, as much as we love Monsters Inc.
Yeah. Maybe I'll make it my NFT.
Fun stuff.
Just one other quick question. I know there's been a lot of discussion around the calculator like that. I know Rose had really great insight, but if somebody wanted to volunteer and get involved with the protocol, who should they be reaching out to?
Well, it depends what your skill set is. But there's a ton of different people to reach out to. Dumpling would probably be the point person who handles like incoming talent inquiries. But yeah, come one, come all.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks, all.
Thanks, John.
And we already have a DM going, so yeah, just shoot anything over.
Great. All right.
Esper.
Hey, so my question is around, so I actually didn't really know about Beanstalk very much. I was really into Olympus. I was into the forks, and that was kind of like my big scoop into game theory. And Beanstalk is very, very interesting. But the exploit pretty much brought it to life for me to actually like dig into the white paper. My question is around.
It's funny how that works, huh?
So funny. But my question is around not having any collateral in the protocol and relying solely on credit. Obviously, that's a decision that was purposely made. And I think, given the benefits or let's say the success of Frax so far as a fractionalized algorithmic stablecoin, like what are your thoughts on having some degree of collateral as a sort of tool to protect the credit worthiness of Beanstalk?
So there's a couple things here. The first thing is the big benefits that you get, the main benefits that you get in terms of having a positive carry stablecoin are a function of the fact that there's no collateral. Because anytime you have collateral, there's opportunity cost associated with locking up that collateral. So agree that Frax has been successful with its model, but in the grand scheme of things, with the goal to be to create the lowest cost stablecoin, de facto, if you have collateral, you're not the lowest cost that you can be. And furthermore, and this is theoretical, I think that it makes sense for everyone to lean into the credit model more, to have Beanstalk lean into as much as possible its credit history and not hide behind the guise of any collateral or a treasury or an insurance policy or something like that, whereby as soon as people can drain the treasury or drain the excess reserves or whatever, the structure of the market is changed substantively. It's much better from preventing a run on the bank or a loss in confidence in the model perspective to always have the only thing be the center of attention, be the credit of the system. So it's both the economics in the short term, like in terms of borrowing costs or carrying costs, and then from a macro behavioral perspective, really think it makes sense for the protocol to just lean 100% into the credit instead of hiding behind some, the idea of collateral that's not really actually helpful.
Right. That makes sense. So on the positive carry point is like, how do we know that the cost on our credit worthiness when there are times of distrust and we're like below peg, let's say, and we have to raise the weather, how do we know that cost, because we have to pay a higher rate of interest, isn't outweighing the opportunity cost of the collateral?
So that's a great question. I would make the argument that implicitly the thing to realize is not at any given moment, right? At the moment where Beanstalk needs to attract lenders and it cannot, it would be much better to have some sort of reserve to plug that gap at the margin, 100%. But at the macro level, what you lose is the ability to scale, whereby, in effect, the goal for Beanstalk is to be able to issue trillions of beans. If you're going to have some collateral, that collateral in theory would need to scale with the size of the bean supply. And in short, I think it's really hard to scale anything like this of the sort with collateral. At some point you run into the problem that there's simply not enough collateral. And particularly given that the goal is to be truly decentralized, you're limited to on-chain decentralized collateral, and that's very, very limited, if you know what I mean, in the grand scheme of things. So it's going to be expensive as fuck.
Right, makes sense. Thank you.
For sure, man. Welcome.
Okay, well, we're starting to run out of questions, guys. We can't always keep Publius for 3 hours.
No, I have nothing else to do. I promise you, I have nothing else to do at the moment. So, maybe a better way to say it is there's nothing I'd rather be doing than chatting with all of you about all this stuff. The amount of good ideas that have come forward from all these discussions that have been incorporated, it's like, it's kind of nuts. It's been very cool to be a part of this process over the past 4 or 5 days or so.
Cool Beans is getting technical and is saying one can argue that the LPs are collateral, albeit for 5 hours only, because of the.
It's not collateral. There's nothing backing up the coins. It's liquidity. Just because there's liquidity, it doesn't mean that it's collateral.
Jones.
Mike Jones.
Who? Mike Jones. Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you good.
Hey, I got a question. This is a much more longer term, kind of not immediate priority, given kind of the state that we're at. But kind of one kind of more longer term question I have is, has there been any discussion in how to, I guess, better modulate the weather in the long run? I guess kind of my understanding of right now how it works is kind of every hour kind of decreases by 3%. But in a way, I think kind of that 3% is too small. And I don't even know how you'd formulate.
Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's too small, right? If the weather was 1%,
exactly, right?
Raise is way too big. But at 10,000%, a 3% raise does nothing. But on the other hand, if you start raising it as a percent and you're at 10,000, well, now that FIFO incentive isn't nearly as meaningful. If a 3% increase on 10,000, you're now going to tell me that you're going to increase the weather by 300% every hour. Like you see what I'm saying? It's really hard to know what's ideal. So at a micro level, I would agree. There's lots of inefficiencies in the weather, a lot of inefficiencies in the weather. But at a macro level, if you just look at the price chart over time and the weather over time, in the grand scheme of things, Beanstalk and the weather changes have been incredibly efficient. So agree that at a micro level, you can look and say this is far from ideal. But over the next 2 or 3 months, that's not going to be where I think it makes sense to spend attention. But in general, this is something, I mean, we've spent so much time talking with Mr. Mochi and with Mod, so many people who have different ideas on how to improve the weather and, think that it can be improved tremendously. But, not, at least from my perspective, that's not going to be a priority over the next 2 to 3 months, given that the weather is more than good enough for the time being.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. And I agree. It's not an immediate priority. There's other things. And again, I will say I'm a big Bean believer. I've been in it for a while now and in a pretty meaningful way, and excited about all the progress that we've made and kind of the work that you and the community have done. And, excited to participate in the fundraise and excited to get this going again. Thanks.
Hell yeah, brother. Much appreciated.
It's Mike.
Oh, can you guys
Barking. We can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. This is probably not a question that is of much concern, but just curious. So, by my understanding, for the barn raise pot line and the whole vesting mechanism, the reason for having the vesting mechanism is for people to stay in, essentially, and then not immediately get out and dump everything, which is understandable considering the situation with bean price right now. Though, I wonder if it will create, artificial excessive demand, if you can get what I mean. So. Which will
it definitely will. It definitely will. I would argue not excess demand, but a shortage of supply, right?
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, given the current structure of Beanstalk, basically.
Yeah, and just to get an understanding of where you're coming from with this, I'm guessing that you're confident that the mechanism of Beanstalk will eventually just regulate it.
Well, it's not even that. It's like where the sell pressure is no longer going to come from for the short term is the silo, but there's actually an increase in sell pressure coming from the pod line because now pods are receiving 2/3 of bean mints. So there is some aspect whether it's being offset, and and furthermore, it's not like we were seeing a lot of withdrawals from the silo, if you know what I mean. So
yeah.
Hard to say apples to apples, but in the grand scheme of things, the bigger point is if Beanstalk grows a little bit more aggressively than it was before because of this distribution of bean mints, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, yeah. That's all the question that I have. Just want to get a sense.
Thanks, man. You made me a little hungry with that PFP, but otherwise, thank you for coming up here.
Yeah, I'm a chicken guy, so unfortunately, not so much into eating beans.
Slacking. Okay, we have a question. When will I be able to see how many beans I had at the pre-exploit snapshot? Will they be able to know pre and post numbers?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, Owen?
Yeah. Thanks. I'm very appreciate what Bean teams have been done now. I have a question that I read the announcement you said before. You will contact the FBI to recovering the fund. I just want to know check the schedule or condition. What's the feedback? Do you really did that?
Oh, yeah, we did. We filed a report. We've spoken with the FBI multiple times. And, in short, we're trying to help them in any way we can to figure out who did this.
Okay. I just discussed with my Chinese friend. They just think this project in the long term. What if happened if the SEC or FBI know your identities? They will, if the project will going very well in the future, they will contact you and give you some warning. Do you have this concern?
So, agree that the fact that we're no longer anonymous changes something substantively. But in the grand scheme of things, the main reason we were anonymous was because we really feel like Beanstalk should not have a head or a leader. And the goal was and is for at some point Publius to disappear. But in terms of having done anything wrong or illegal, have no concern about that. One of the reasons we wanted to raise our hands and dox ourselves was to have the whole community realize that, we had nothing to do with the attack and that we are, honest people and are sticking by Beanstalk and the community. And, in the grand scheme of things, there's very clearly a lot of additional eyes looking at Beanstalk and at us as a result. And not all scrutiny is good. But the beauty of having a decentralized protocol is that I'm not in charge of anything. And as I'm sure you know, Owen, all of this has just been us talking about what might be a good idea to do. And ultimately, it's up for the DAO to vote on what makes sense going forward. And this is all really just part of a larger discussion as to how we should move forward collectively. So I'm not worried about that because I don't have the ability to affect Beanstalk individually, and neither does Publius as a whole, particularly when the new governance structure is set up where there's a community-run multi-sig. The system is decentralized, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, thanks your very ambition version for the future. Final question: what gonna improve in the on-chain government in this protocol or in the Bean? What we can learn from this hacked lesson? Yeah.
So for now, I think and I think everyone's in agreement that on-chain governance needs to be put on hold for the time being. And even Vitalik was participating in the discussion on Twitter, saying that token-based governance is not a good idea. So long story short, I think we as a whole need to go back to the drawing board and figure out a longer-term solution for decentralized governance, censorship-resistant governance. But for the time being, I think on-chain governance is not a good idea.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Broad.
So on. Okay, Tan? Can't hear you yet, Tan. Oh, Publius, the question I was asking before. When will people be able to see how many beans they had pre-exploit?
Not sure. Not sure.
Will that be, or not, maybe not exactly when, but when the new, when it's relaunched, will you be able to back into that calculation, or is that, I think the person is thinking specifically for some sort of taxes or a calculation with regards to that?
Oh, I would have no idea on the tax front. But with regards to having the information be available, I would think that, and again, not Jelly, you don't need to come back up here, but I'm sure Jelly's taking notes as to what the community wants to see on the new website as well.
Okay, from DeProf. Will we be able to know the bids in the system during the bidding period? Assuming it will
Hell
be
yeah, of course. Having the ability to see other people's bids is one of the main things that will create the game theory here, or the game mechanic here.
Okay. Oh, what if the FBI does somehow recover anything? Has the team discussed what you would do with the recovered funds?
The short answer is I have not been a part of any of those discussions. One of the main questions is, would the funds be recovered before or after the fundraise, which is substantive, so therefore it's too hard to think about the different options.
Okay, we got Mez. Hey, Mez. Can't hear you yet, Mez. Wait till you get your mic set up. Okay, one more for you, Publius. Is it correct that after the auction starts and we have a bid in, we can adjust the weather lower on an amount to try to get it to fill?
Yes, that is correct.
You speak a little bit to the potential of why someone might not want to do that?
Sure. The only reason you wouldn't want to do that is because the bonus is going to get updated based on the time that you update your bid effectively, such that you could take a penalty. So you'd be lowering your weather and lowering the bonus. So there's some cost there. But would just say that's one of the reasons why it incentivizes people to bid aggressively and bid honestly on what they'd actually like to pay, as opposed to bidding low at the start.
Makes sense. Okay, Mez, if you want to leave and come back, it might make your mic work. You might make your mic work. Okay, he DM'd me his question. Just wanted to ask if there are unharvestable pods that were ready to harvest at the time of the exploit, what will happen to those?
Those will be treated as beans, and they will be scaled according to the haircut, according to this plan.
Gotcha. Deckers, what needs to be improved in on-chain governance to see a world where it might work?
Clearly a lot. Like, it's just too many things to comment on at this point. So it's, don't want to get into speculating. It's like, clearly there were a lot of problems.
Boss fee, and Moon.
You tell me, sir.
I'll invite you up, Boss fee. I don't know if you can speak.
Shit, I don't have much to say. I was just fooling around, man. But I don't have much to say. I was just fooling around.
I liked your poem earlier.
Yeah, likewise. I think the thing around Kipling is pretty cool, and this is it was definitely a very, very hard punch, but pretty cool to see how things are. I guess since I'm up here, I might as well ask a question now. What will be the number one key indicator that Publius you'll be looking at on let's say the day after launch, like after bidding is done?
Well, the day after the bidding will be the sowing period. So that maybe the better question is the day it's after the sowing period.
Yes, that's right. The day after the sowing period, what's the major indicator you're looking at, and what do you
when we're ready to hit play? So then the open question is whether the DAO wants to wait for the Trail of Bits audit, or whether to just everyone's ready to hit play again.
Got it. And you don't have a timeline yet, right, for the Trail of Bits audit?
Trail of Bits starts June 2nd and is scheduled for 3 weeks, I believe. So the idea would be, it could be a launch at the end of April or beginning of July. End of June or beginning of July.
Got it. Thank you. I'll take leave, guys, and stop posting silly things.
Asfi, you're never silly other than in the best ways.
Thanks, Asfi. I think that's a pretty good time to wrap it, guys. We do have another one tomorrow, so you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait very long. You have to wait about 23 hours. So, this is a pretty good opportunity to ask as many questions as you have. So, as everyone knows, there's a lot of work to be doing in the meantime, so we don't want to take all of our time. So yeah, with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this, and we'll see all of you tomorrow.
Thanks, Dumpling. Talk soon.